I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show, we have with us Caroline, the co-founder of A3S Protocol. Caroline, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks, Ashton. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Caroline, and I'm the co-founder of A3S Protocol and focusing on the product growth. And yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Let's just dive straight into it. Your team is doing something I haven't seen before in the industry with NFTs that is a great use case that people aren't familiar with right now. You know, they're sort of thinking NFTs as digital art, and there's all these different use cases that it can revolutionize in different industries. So let's just start by diving right into it. We'll start with the basics. I'd love to explain for us, what is A3S Protocol and what are the main solutions that your team is working on?
Sure. So A3S is a multi-chain protocol to create the next generation address standard. So this means that the addresses created by A3S protocol are different from the traditional addresses. The next generation addresses can be securely transferred to other people or be traded on the market, or even rented out to the consumer as a service. So I think this allows the addresses to become an on-chain service that we can easily put a price on.
Okay. And I feel like we need to break this down a little bit more. I feel like traditional Ethereum, Bitcoin addresses are already a little bit confusing for people as they normally make no sense as just a hexadecimal address. And there are different solutions that make it easier for people to read it, but you guys are bringing a whole next level of functionality. Can you talk about, I'm guessing that your team has looked through other solutions of people trying to bring functionality. What makes A3S Protocol specifically having a competitive advantage in the way that your approach to this solution?
Sure. So the biggest feature of A3S protocol is that it separates the right of control from the addresses. So in our case, the control is attached to a controller NFT. We can also call it, the owner NFT, or some others might call it an NFT key or NFT gate. So basically, it means that whoever has the NFT has full control over the addresses. So this model has several benefits, like the addresses can now be transferred to another person or traded on the market thanks to their transferability. And also because the right of control is now substantialized into a NFT. So any infrastructure that can be applied to an NFT is also applicable to our addresses. And also, I would like to mention that there is no private key for our address. Well, I should probably rephrase that. There is a private key, but it's hidden. So it is the NFT that you control. So there's no need to memorize your private key or, write it down somewhere safe. There is just no risk of leakage.
Okay, that's great to know. And, I mentioned that there's a lot of different use cases for NFTs, but I specifically haven't seen a project that uses NFTs to control specific addresses. How did your team come up with this idea, and what problems did you see where this was the perfect solution?
Yeah, well, actually, the idea of the project comes down to our personal experience. So first, I would like to give a story of one of our co-founders who is a quant trader, and their team will do some, on-chain high-frequency trading activities. And one trouble that they have for a few times is that every time someone left the team, they will need to retire the whole batch of their on-chain addresses, because in order to avoid any moral hazard, right? But later on, they did come up with a centralized solution where they use AWS service. So, they managed to do that. So the trader doesn't need to know the private key, but they can still have control over the trading address. But the centralized solution does satisfy their needs to some extent, but he wants to take it to the next level, to bring that solution to the on-chain world. So that's why he has the idea of A3S protocol. And as for myself, I had a pretty similar experience. So I remember I was camping in a national park, and I got a text message from my roommate, and she's like, oh, Caroline, all my collaterals just got liquidated, and you should check yours. And I think we borrowed some assets from a platform called DYDX, and I didn't have my laptop, and I was in the middle of nowhere. My internet connection is really bad, so I had to ask her to, do some transactions and add more asset collaterals for me. Basically, I shared my private key with her to allow her to use my address. But of course, later on, I had to, create a new address because, just in case. Not that I do trust her under that circumstance, but after that day, I have to use a new address in order to keep all my assets safe, right? So I think we both in the situation, like me and my co-founder, we both in the situation where things will be much easier if we can just give the address temporarily to someone and, can get it later safely. So that's why we think our product can really solve the problems for the users, because we've been in that difficult situation and we experienced that, so we know exactly what the users need.
Great example, Caroline, and that makes a lot more sense when you give the example of when you're camping. And there's a lot of times when I feel that people trading don't have access to their account and they need to give it to a friend or family quickly to make a trade. But once you give your private keys to somebody, there's no changing that private key, and 100 years later, they could still access the account.
Exactly.
So that's a huge problem to be solved right now. So that it makes a lot more sense now that you put it that way, to give temporary control to other people and be able to move that around using NFTs.
It can be temporarily or for good. It depends on their needs. So you can, you can just purchase someone's address and that's yours, and they will no longer have control over this address.
Interesting. And I was looking through, the papers for A3S and on the website, and I saw that it was talking about powering addresses by Liquidity. Now, that does, at first glance, I'm curious on what does that really mean. Maybe you could explain that for me and the viewers. It
actually has two layers of meaning. So with the traditional addresses, in order to share them with another people, you obviously need to share your private key with them. And like I mentioned before, like the sharing of your private key with someone else cannot be undone. It's not like we can delete their memories or anything. So since we separate out the right of control from the address, we make it possible for one to transfer the address to another, and addresses become transferable. So this is the first layer of liquidity. And the second layer of meaning is that with this transferability, addresses become an asset, like NFT, which can be traded on the market or, rented out like a service. So addresses can be priced by the supply and demand, just like any other liquid asset, just like stocks or, bonds that people can buy and trade. Yeah, that's the second layer of liquidity.
Very interesting. I'd be excited to be able to purchase someone's group of addresses on Marketplace as an NFT. I'm looking forward to checking that out. And I also saw that part of it is called address as a service. Is that sort of like being able to buy and sell the addresses, or what is address as a service?
I will give some specific example for you and the audience to better understand the situation. So just imagine that you've been interested in an NFT project for quite a long time, and one day you saw on Twitter that they are having a pre-sale of their new collection of NFT, and you think the project has great potential, so you're looking to get like at least 20 of them. But unfortunately, you're not entitled to mint those NFT because they're only for members who had participated in, like for example, their previous governance proposal. So, well, you missed that because you were on the bed recovering from COVID. So it will be great that you can, some eligible members who are not very interested in the pre-sale. Then they're willing to rent you their addresses for you to mint those NFT, right? And another situation can be like when you need to operate multiple addresses to participate in an activity. So you need to have both the payment assets and the assets to pay the gas fee ready in all of your addresses. So rather than you depositing those assets to every address, it will be much easier if you can just rent those addresses, with existing assets to cover gas fee. So it can be like BNB or, ETH. You just need to pay everything at once for the addresses, for the address service provider. So yeah, it will be like much more easier. Okay. Well, actually, on top of my head, let me just give some more examples. So, there is one to transfer fixed assets. So, by fixed assets, I mean the assets locked in the address. A good example is VECRV. So, the VECRV received from staking your CRV token is actually locked in your address. So if you are more interested in the yields or the economic value from staking, you don't actually want to hold those VCRV, but it's locked in your address. So you'll be able to sell those by just selling your address. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say here is that transferable address is like a basic infrastructure, and a lot of things can be built on that foundation. Yeah.
Great examples, Caroline, and I can think of many times as well where I wanted to get into, for example, on the Polkadot parachain and lease offerings. They often have one on the Kusama chain beforehand, and if you participate in one, then you're allowed to participate in the next. But often you don't hear about the first one, and you're only allowed to participate if you've already participated before. And then in that case, there could just be a marketplace where you would be able to access people that could offer their addresses that have already participated. And so that makes a lot of sense as sort of like address as a service. Thank you for explaining that. All of these use cases sound very valid, and I feel like these would be great to have in the mainstream cryptocurrency industry right now. So I'm curious, where exactly is your team at with all of these different functions and releasing them into the market?
We have already finished the design of the first version of the contract. So basically, we have a demo already, but we're still testing it. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to launch the product in the third quarter of this year. So yeah, and in our first version, the users can create the A3S address to send and receive assets both ways. And of course, they'll be able to transfer the address to another person.
Great. And where do you see NFTs, in this kind of use case moving forward, a year from now or a few years from now? Do you think people will, there will be other competitors that come up and try to do similar things, and that this will be a common use case for NFTs?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very good question. So NFT by its name is a type of differentiated assets, and addresses is a very native component of blockchains. So in the future, a large number of the addresses will be represented in the forms of NFT. So we can establish that the buying, selling, renting, basically all the uses of NFTs will be applied to the addresses. And I also believe that with the development of the whole ecosystem, there will be more and more crypto native components like addresses or like ENS will take the forms of NFTs, because currently the major application of NFT is like what you mentioned in the beginning, is still quite limited to collectibles, or PFP, things like that.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing these updates from your team, and just the evolution of NFTs. And I feel like this is just the beginning. What is the best way for the viewers to follow along with with A3S Protocol and just the updates in this kind of evolution for NFTs in with what your team is releasing?
You can always reach out and check out our official websites. It's very easy to remember. It's just a3sprotocol.xyz. And we also have our Twitter account and our Discord community. And we also post some articles on our Medium. So we can find link to all these 3 channels through our website. And also we are on GR14 on Gitcoin. It's a grant event to support public good projects. So if you're interested in our project, please find us and support us on Gitcoin.
Amazing. Great to hear that as well. Thank you, Caroline. I will leave the link to the website and the Twitter and Discord, as well as you mentioned, in the description box below to make it easy for the viewers. I appreciate all your insight on the future of NFTs and the innovations that A3S Protocol is working on. Thank you, and let's follow up in the near future.
Yeah, thank you. It's really fun, talking to you and the audience about our projects. And, hopefully in the future, many users using our transferable address and, go back to check out our early days videos, and they'll realize, this talented YouTuber has discovered this project in such an early stage. So yeah, thank you so much today.
Thank you.